if I have vertices at 2, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and a vertice at 2, -1, just based on that fact alone, I get told a couple of things. First, I get told which way my hyperbola is opening. Which way is this hyperbola opening? Up, down, right? Okay. Which is important because that's going to be then a y squared minus x squared type of hyperbola. Okay? So that's key. That's important. The second thing that gets told to me is where the center is. The center is going to be the midpoint of those 2 points, which is going to be the point 2, 2. Okay. So if I'm looking at my general form of my equation, that's going to be y minus k quantity squared over b squared minus x minus h quantity squared over a squared. That's going to equal 1. I've got h and I've got k now. Okay, so I got those two. Do I have anything else? Knowing the fact that this distance now is 3. What is that? That's b. So I got b. Okay. So I get all of that just off of where the 2 vertices are. Okay. Now, if I'm looking at the focus or the foci, that's the kicker part. That's the extra part. That's the C part. Okay? So my C is the square root of 34. So if I go over and I do a little hyperbola math, C squared equals A squared, equals A squared equals B squared. Let's not do that. Let's do C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Then C is going to be the square root of 34 quantity squared is going to equal A squared plus 5 squared. 3 squared. Nope, yep. I can't be right all the time. Getting ahead of myself. So that's going to be 34 equals A squared plus 9. 25 is equal to A squared 5 is A. And now I have everything that I need to write my equation. So my equation of this hyperbola is going to be y minus 2 quantity squared all over 9 minus x minus 2 quantity squared all over 25 equals 1. And that's my equation. From here now I could go graph it. I could finish filling out all that extra stuff and I could graph it, but I'm not going to. Okay? Questions on that? Okay. Today we're going to talk about the general form of conic sections. Okay? And how we're going to use this. Now you guys in class have already written this stuff down because I told you to come in and write this stuff down first. If you haven't written it down, you should write it down right now because that's what we're talking about today. That's what our answers are going to look like today. Okay? What we're going to do today is, yes, remember when I told you to write it down on your note card? Yeah. Okay? We're going to take something that looks like this. Okay? And I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what is it? The second question I'm going to ask you is, what's the general form of it? And the third question I'm going to ask you is, graph it. Okay? So in order to do that, we're going to need to have some guidelines. And the guidelines that we have is we look at the squared terms. Okay? So if you notice, in a circle, there's 2 squared terms. In a parabola, there's 1 squared term. In a hyperbola, there's 2. In an ellipse, there's 2. Okay? So the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to ask yourself, how many squared terms are there? If there's 1, it's a parabola. And you work the parabola to get to answer the other questions. If there's 2, then you have to go to the next check. And the second check is, are those 2 squared terms separated by a subtraction sign? If the answer to that question is yes, then it's a hyperbola. If the answer to that question is no, there's an addition sign in between them, then you go to the third check. And the third check is, are the coefficients the same or different on the squared terms? If the coefficients are the same on the squared terms, it's a circle. If the coefficients are different, it's an ellipse. Okay? So once again, those steps, because you guys are all catching up now. Step number 1, count the squared terms. If it's 1, it's a parabola. If it's 2, you go to step 2. Step 2 is there a subtraction sign in between them, between the squared terms? If the answer is yes, it's a hyperbola. If the answer is no, then you go to step 3 and you look at the coefficients. If the coefficients are different, it's an ellipse. If they're the same, it's a circle. Okay? So, my question to you on this slide is, what conic section are those? And we'll start with letter A. 6x squared minus 2y squared plus 24x plus 2y minus 1 equals 0. What is it? First step, count the squared terms. How many squared terms are there? In letter A, this should be an everybody answering type 1. In letter A, how many squared terms are there? 2. Okay, so it's not a parabola. Okay, second step, what's separating the squared terms? Subtraction sign. That makes it a hyperbola. tell me what the other three are with justification now. Okay? It should literally take us about 30 seconds to get through these three. B. What's B? Why? Two square terms. Plus sign. That's it. And the coefficients are different. Because if there were two square terms and it was a plus sign and the coefficients were the same, it's a circle. So I have to justify it with all three. Okay? So we got two squared terms. There's an addition sign. The coefficients are different. That makes this an ellipse. C. What's C? Why? Only one squared term. It's a parabola. She's almost done crinkling her stuff. D. What's D? Why? And addition. Yep. So there's two squared terms separated by an addition sign. Coefficients are the same. Makes it a circle. Okay? All right, let's get into one. Here's our example. I want three things from this example. One, I want to know what it is. Two, I want it in its general form. Three, I want the graph and all the stuff that goes along with it. You know what I mean? If it's a parabola, I want the focus, and I want the directrix, and I want the vertex. If it's a circle, I want the radius and the center. If it's an ellipse, I want the center, the focus, the foci, and the vertices. If it's a hyperbola, I want the center, the vertices, the asymptotes, the foci, and I'm missing one. Nope, I think that's it. Okay. Well, but that's part of the graph. I'll get that off the graph. You know what I mean? Okay? All right? So question number one is, what is it? What be this thing? What you got, Mr. Bailey?
Ellipse.
Why?
Because there's addition, two square terms, addition, and coefficients.
Fantastic. This is an ellipse. Huh? Right? Two squared terms, addition, different coefficients. All right. So what I would do first is I would group my variables. Okay. And then I would go even further, and I would factor out a 25, or factor out the coefficients. In this case, it's only from the y's, but I know on your homework that it's going to be in both the x's and the y's sometimes. But so you factor out that stuff. Okay? Now, I'm going to run completing the square on my x's. So my b value there, let me raise this up a little bit for the people in the back. My b value here is -6. I'm going to divide that by 2, and I'm going to square it. So this gap that I created gets filled with +9. If I add 9 there, what else do I have to do? Add 9 to the other side. Now, I'm going to complete the square on the y's. My b value there is -4. I'm going to divide it by 2. Gets me -2. And I'm going to square it. Gives me 4. So I'm going to add 4 there. If I add 4 there, what do I have to add to the other side? Yep. No. You know what? For a second there, I thought you said we had to add 100 to the other side. What? Oh, okay. What are we going to add to the right side? What? Not 4. It's 100. Okay? Why is it 100? Because this 25 right here, that 25 is controlling that 4, so I have to add 100 over there. Okay? All right? Yep, I really do have to add 100. Okay? Now, we can finish off completing the square by rewriting the blue one as x minus 3 quantity squared, then plus 25 times the quantity y minus 2 quantity squared, and that's going to equal -84 plus 7 or plus 9 is -75 plus 100 is 25. Right? Is it in standard form yet of an ellipse? Because all ellipses are equal to 1. Okay? All ellipses are equal to 1. Okay? Side note, a lot of people on the formative just put down the 2 fraction parts. They didn't put the equals 1 part. Okay? That's an equation has an equal sign and it's got to be equal to something. Okay? So we're going to divide everything by 25. So that gives me my first answer. The first answer was, or the second answer really, because the first answer was what is it? It was an ellipse. But this is x minus 3 quantity squared divided by 25 plus y minus 2 quantity squared divided by 1 equals 1. Standard form now? Yes. Okay, let's graph this. Where is my center? 3, 2. Do we all agree with 3, 2? Yes? What is my A value? Do we all agree with 5? Yes. So left 5, right 5. What is my B value? 1. Up 1, down 1. Graphed it, right? But now we got to answer some questions. First question that we had to answer was where was the center? We did that. Okay? Vertices. What are the vertices of this bad boy? Negative 2 comma 2. And 8 comma 2. Foci. Equation for the foci is what? C squared is equal to the absolute value of a squared minus b squared. So that's going to be 25 minus 1 is 24. So C then is going to be 2 times the square root of 6. Because 24 is 4 times 6. Square root of 4 is 2. My foci are left and right or up and down from the center. Left and right or up and down? Left and right. So I'm going to add and subtract 2 square roots of 6s to the x part of my vertex. Okay? Now, a couple of housekeeping notes here with 5 minutes to go in class. 1. Formulas only on your note card. Okay, you get a note card for Wednesday, formulas only. Okay? I would also put on there like the foci formula, okay, for ellipses and hyperbolas. I would also put on there what stuff means, like on a what does P mean in a parabola? What does A mean? What does H mean? What does K mean? What, you know what I mean? That stuff's not examples. Okay? You just can't put examples on your note card, but you can put everything else. Okay? So we got that going on. Second thing, we would like that you have your blue homework packet done by your Monday, Tuesday class. One of the stations on Monday, Tuesday is going to be answering questions. It's very hard to get questions answered if you haven't done it yet. Okay? So make sure you do it. Come with questions Monday, Tuesday. 3, remember, last day today, to register for NTC. 4, if you haven't picked up your formative yet, make sure you pick that up. Okay. 5, that's all I got. Okay.
What does the formative do?
Sooner the better on formative, but for sure Wednesday. Last day would be Wednesday. Okay, for formative correction. Okay. I did have a 5. Okay. 5. There are 3 videos to watch this weekend. They will be posted this afternoon. They'll be short and sweet. What they're going to be is, there's going to be a hyperbola one like the example we did today. There's going to be a circle one like the example we did today. And there's going to be a parabola one like we did today. Okay? So there's 3 videos that we expect you to watch and take notes on for Monday, Tuesday. Okay? So before you come to your 4-mod class on Monday, Tuesday, make sure you watch the video, the 3 videos of that. Okay? I also see if you want to take pictures of the general form so that you have them, so that you can rewrite them down, go ahead. Go nuts. They'll be online. Okay? They'll be on It's Learning too. So, by all means,